Sarah believed her marriage was solid, 15 years of partnership, trust, and love. But when she finds an unfamiliar piece of clothing hidden in her husband's drawer, her world begins to unravel. What starts as suspicion of infidelity leads her down a path of discovery that challenges everything she thought she knew about the person she married. As secrets surface and truths emerge, Sarah must decide whether love can survive when the foundation shifts beneath it. A dramatic exploration of identity, honesty, and what it means to truly know another person. The discovery that changed everything. Sarah Chen had been married to Michael for 15 years. They'd met in college, fallen in love over late-night study sessions and shared dreams, and built what everyone called the perfect marriage. 2 kids, a comfortable suburban home, successful careers. Their life looked exactly like the American dream. Which is why finding the lingerie in Michael's drawer felt like discovering a crack in the foundation of her entire world. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March. Sarah was putting away laundry while Michael was at work and the kids were at school. She'd opened his sock drawer, the same drawer she'd opened 1,000 times before, and there, tucked beneath his running socks, was something that didn't belong. A pair of women's underwear. Lace. Expensive. Definitely not hers. Sarah's first thought was breathtakingly simple. He's having an affair. Her hands trembled as she held the evidence, her mind immediately constructing the narrative. The late nights at work, the business trips, the distracted way he'd been acting lately. It all made sense now. Michael was cheating on her. She sat on their bed, the bed they'd shared for 15 years, and felt her carefully constructed life begin to crumble. How long had it been going on? Who was she? Did he love her? Were there others? Sarah's second thought was equally clear. I need proof. She took a photo of the underwear with her phone, carefully replaced it exactly where she'd found it, and spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, mechanically going through the motions of her daily routine while her mind spun with betrayal and hurt. When Michael came home that evening, Sarah studied him like she was seeing him for the first time. He was 42. Still handsome in the slightly worn way of middle-aged men who'd traded gym time for family time. He kissed her cheek the same way he always did, asked about her day in the same distracted tone he always used, helped their daughter Emma with her math homework with the same patience he always showed. He seemed exactly like himself, which somehow made it worse. Michael, Sarah said after the kids were in bed, her heart pounding, we need to talk. He looked up from his laptop with mild concern. Is everything okay? I found something today. In your drawer. She watched his face carefully. For just a fraction of a second, something flickered in his expression. Fear, maybe, or panic. Then his features smoothed into careful neutrality. What did you find? Sarah pulled out her phone and showed him the photo. These. Care to explain whose they are? Michael stared at the image for a long moment. Sarah watched emotions play across his face. Shame, definitely, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Not guilt, exactly. Something more complex. They're mine, he said quietly. Sarah's brain stuttered to a halt. What? The underwear. They're mine. I bought them. For me. Of all the scenarios Sarah had constructed in her mind during the afternoon, this hadn't been one of them. I don't understand. You're saying you wear women's underwear? Sometimes, yes. Michael's voice was barely above a whisper. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Sarah felt like the conversation had jumped tracks into a completely different destination than she'd expected. How long? Since I was a teenager. Before I met you. And you never told me? The hurt in Sarah's voice was sharp. 15 years, Michael. 15 years we've been married and you never mentioned this? I was ashamed, Michael said, finally looking at her. His eyes were red-rimmed. I tried to stop. When we got serious, I threw everything away. I thought if I was married, if I had a family, the feelings would go away. But they didn't. Sarah stood abruptly, needing distance, needing space to process. So you've been lying to me. Our entire marriage. Not lying, just not telling you something. That's the same thing. Sarah's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. What else haven't you told me? What else don't I know about the person I've spent 15 years with? Nothing else. I swear, Sarah. This is the only thing. But Sarah was already moving toward the bedroom. I need to think. I need to be alone right now. She spent that night in the guest room, her mind a chaos of confusion, anger, and something she couldn't quite name. She wasn't upset that Michael wore women's underwear, or at least she didn't think that was the issue. The issue was the secrecy, the years of hiding, the fact that she'd shared a life with someone who couldn't share this part of himself with her. What did it mean? Was Michael transgender? Was this a sexual thing? A comfort thing? And why, after 15 years, was he still hiding it? Over the next few days, Sarah and Michael existed in a state of careful politeness, speaking only about logistics: who would pick up the kids, what needed to be bought at the grocery store, when bills were due. The elephant in the room grew larger with each avoided conversation. Finally, on Friday evening, Sarah broke the silence. "We need to talk about this properly. Really talk." Michael nodded, relief evident on his face. "I know. I've been trying to figure out how to explain." They sat in the living room after the kids were asleep, the space between them on the couch feeling like a canyon. "Start from the beginning," Sarah said. "Help me understand." Michael took a deep breath. "When I was about 13, I started feeling different. Not wrong, exactly, but like there were parts of me that didn't fit into the boxes everyone expected. I experimented with wearing my sister's clothes when no one was home. It felt right, comfortable in a way that my regular clothes didn't. Did you tell anyone? God, no. This was the late 90s in a conservative town. You didn't talk about things like this. I learned very quickly to hide it, to pretend to be exactly what everyone expected. And that continued through college, when we met?" Michael nodded. "I thought I could control it, that it was just a phase, or something I could overcome through willpower. When I fell in love with you, I genuinely believed that having a normal life would make these feelings disappear. But they didn't. No, they didn't. If anything, suppressing them made it worse. For years, I just endured. Tried to be the perfect husband, the perfect father, the perfect son, but there was always this part of me that I was locking away." Sarah felt tears pricking her eyes. "So when did you start again?" "About 2 years ago. I was having panic attacks. Couldn't sleep. My doctor suggested therapy for stress, and in therapy, it all came pouring out. My therapist helped me understand that these feelings weren't going away, and that denying them was destroying me." "You've been in therapy for 2 years and never told me?" Michael's face crumpled. "I was terrified. Terrified you'd leave. Terrified you'd think I was some kind of freak. Terrified that our kids would find out and be ashamed of me. So instead, you just kept lying?" I know it was wrong, but every time I tried to tell you, I'd imagine your reaction, imagine losing everything, and I just couldn't." Sarah stood and paced to the window, looking out at their quiet suburban street. "What do you want, Michael? Do you want a transition? Do you identify as a woman?" "No, at least I don't think so. My therapist says I'm probably somewhere on the spectrum of gender nonconformity, but I don't have all the answers yet. I'm still figuring it out." "And what am I supposed to do while you figure it out? Just accept that the person I thought I knew doesn't actually exist?" "I'm still me, Sarah. I'm still the person who loves you, who loves our kids, who wants to make this marriage work. I'm just also this other thing." Sarah turned back to face him, and the pain in his eyes almost broke her. But her own pain was real too. "You broke my trust, Michael. You let me believe we had complete honesty, and we didn't. How am I supposed to rebuild that?" "I don't know, but I want to try, if you'll let me." Sarah didn't answer immediately. Instead, she sat back down, leaving the canyon of space between them. "I need time. I need to process this. And I think we need couples therapy, because I can't navigate this alone. Whatever you need, I'll do whatever it takes." They started couples therapy the following week. Dr. Patricia Morrison was a specialist in relationships affected by gender identity issues, and she created a space where Sarah felt she could express her confusion, anger, and hurt without judgment. "Your feelings are completely valid," Dr. Morrison told Sarah during one session. "You're experiencing a kind of loss, the loss of the relationship you thought you had. Even though Michael is still Michael, your understanding of him has fundamentally changed. That's a real grief. I keep wondering what else I don't know," Sarah admitted. "If he could hide this for 15 years, what else is he capable of hiding?" "That's a fair question to ask Michael directly." Sarah turned to her husband. "Is there anything else? Any other secrets you've been keeping?" Michael met her eyes steadily. "No, this was the only thing. And Sarah, I know I should have told you years ago. I know I should have trusted you with this. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't undo 15 years of lies. I know, but it's a start. The weeks that followed were difficult. Sarah found herself grieving for the marriage she thought she'd had, even though logically she knew nothing had actually changed except her awareness. Michael was still the same person. He just wore different underwear sometimes. But emotions aren't logical. She told her best friend, Jennifer, who responded with surprising pragmatism. Okay, so your husband sometimes wears women's underwear? That's literally the problem. Not that he's cheating, not that he's a gambling addict, not that he's embezzling money, just that he's exploring his gender identity in private. It's the lying, Jen. The years of deception. I get that. But Sarah, think about why he lied. We live in a world that's incredibly cruel to anyone who steps outside gender norms. Can you honestly say that if he'd told you on your third date that he sometimes likes to wear lace underwear, you wouldn't have run screaming? Sarah wanted to say yes. She absolutely would have been understanding. But she wasn't sure that was true. 20 years ago, would she have had the maturity and understanding to handle this? She didn't know. Slowly, painfully, they began rebuilding. Michael started being completely honest about his feelings, his experiences, his journey of self-discovery. Sarah asked questions, even when the answers were uncomfortable. They established new boundaries and new agreements about honesty. One evening, about 3 months after the initial discovery, Sarah found Michael in their bedroom, trying on a skirt he'd ordered online. "Does it look ridiculous?" he asked, his voice uncertain in a way that broke Sarah's heart. She studied him objectively. The skirt actually looked good on him. "No, it suits you." "Really? Really? Michael, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Are you happy? When you're like this, expressing this part of yourself, are you happy?" Michael's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. God, yes. For the first time in my life, I feel like I can breathe." Sarah crossed the room and took his hands. "Then that's what matters. I'm still hurt about the lying. I'm still working through my own feelings about all of this. But I love you, and I want you to be happy. Even if I'm not exactly who you thought I married, you're exactly who I married. I'm just finally getting to see all of you." They held each other in the middle of their bedroom, and Sarah felt something shift. Not a return to what was before. That was impossible. But maybe the beginning of something new, something built on complete honesty, even when that honesty was uncomfortable. The journey wasn't linear. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, days when Sarah questioned whether she could really do this. But there were also breakthroughs, moments of connection deeper than anything they'd experienced before, days when Sarah felt she was finally married to the complete person rather than just the parts Michael thought were acceptable to show. They told the kids eventually. Emma, at 12, was confused but accepting. "So Dad likes to wear women's clothes sometimes." "Okay. Is he going to change his name?" "No, honey. I'm still your dad," Michael assured her. Their son Jake, at 14, took it harder. "Is this like that show where the guy becomes a woman? Are you going to become Mom's wife instead of her husband?" "No, Jake. I'm still your father. I'm still a man. I just don't express my gender in traditional ways all the time." "That's weird. I know it seems weird, but it's who I am." It took time, but eventually Jake came around. The turning point came when Michael picked him up from school one day, wearing subtle makeup. One of Jake's classmates made a snide comment, and Jake punched him. "He called you a freak," Jake explained later, nursing his suspension and his bruised knuckles. "Nobody calls my dad a freak." Sarah and Michael looked at each other across the principal's office, and despite everything, they smiled. Their family was adapting, changing, but surviving. A year after the initial discovery, Sarah found herself in the laundry room, folding Michael's clothes. In the basket were his work shirts, his jeans, his running shorts, and a lace camisole, a floral blouse, and the original pair of underwear that had started everything. She held that underwear for a moment, thinking about how something so small had unraveled and then rewoven her entire life. "Sarah?" Michael appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. I was just thinking." "About?" "About how I thought finding these meant you were having an affair, that another woman was the biggest threat to our marriage. And now? Now I know the biggest threat was dishonesty. And we've dealt with that. We're dealing with it." Michael crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her. "I love you. Thank you for staying." Thank you for trying. I love you too. All of you. Even the parts I'm still learning about. They stood together in the laundry room, surrounded by the mundane reality of their life. Clothes that needed folding, kids who needed picking up from soccer practice, bills that needed paying. But underneath the ordinary was something extraordinary. A marriage that had been tested, broken, and rebuilt stronger than before. Because the truth, Sarah had learned, wasn't that she'd married someone she didn't know. The truth was that she'd married someone who hadn't fully known himself. And together, they were figuring it out. The underwear that had seemed like an ending had actually been a beginning. Not the beginning Sarah had expected or wanted, but perhaps the beginning they'd both needed. As she finished folding the laundry, all of it, without judgment or separation, Sarah realized that love wasn't about loving someone who fit perfectly into your expectations. Love was about loving someone enough to let them be fully themselves, even when that self was complicated, unexpected, and still unfolding. And that was exactly what she was learning to do. Epilogue. This is fiction. The story you've just read is entirely fictional. Sarah, Michael, and their family do not exist. This narrative was created to explore themes of identity, honesty, and acceptance in relationships, but it is not based on any real person or actual events. The themes explored in this story include the importance of honesty in relationships, the complexity of gender identity and expression, the challenge of accepting unexpected truths about people we love, the process of rebuilding trust after betrayal, the journey of self-discovery and acceptance. Important notes. This story addresses gender nonconformity and the very real challenges people face when their gender expression doesn't align with societal expectations. While this specific story is fiction, the emotions and experiences depicted reflect real struggles many people and couples face. If you or someone you know is struggling with questions of gender identity, there are resources available. The Trevor Project, GLAD PFLAG, for family members. Qualified therapists specializing in gender identity. This story is not meant to represent all experiences of gender nonconformity. Suggests there is a right way to handle such discoveries. Judge or prescribe how individuals or couples should respond to these situations. Every relationship, every individual, and every situation is unique. This fictional story is simply one imagined exploration of how honesty, love, and acceptance might navigate complex revelations. Remember, this entire story is fiction created for entertainment and reflection purposes only.